Hey YouTube, welcome back to Lingaroo, where language comes to life. My name's Jen, and today we're going to be talking about communication functions. Coming up. Lingaroo, we're back, and I'm glad you guys have joined us today. Today we're going to be talking about communication functions. Sometimes I think we should have, I don't know if you ever watched the Pee Wee Herman show where they would say a big word or they had a word for the day and everybody would, and they'd scream. I think that would be so fun if we could do it here, but I'm going to guess you probably wouldn't scream with me at home. I don't know, maybe you would. But if I say a term that you don't understand, I want you to please stop me. And by stop me, put it in the comments below or ask me to explain it a little further, right? Because I never want to use a terminology that isn't understandable, or that maybe it's something I learned in school and I've been thinking about for several years or decades in the clinic. And so I never want to use a term that's unfamiliar to you. So today, as we talk about communication functions, or the purposes, right? The purposes of why. There's a great author and speaker, maybe you've heard of some of his TED Talks, Simon Sinek. He has a book that he recently put out called Start With Why, and he talks about anytime you're starting a business or anytime you're evaluating your world and things that you're doing, it's important to start with the why, the motivation behind what you're doing, right? And so I know we kind of didn't do that here. Our last two videos were talking about just some hands-on strategies and some theories for language stimulation and what you can be doing. So maybe I should write a book called Circle Back to Why, or Let's Go and Revisit the Why, because we didn't start with it, but I think it's okay. I think it's okay, but the reason it's important to talk about the why is because I think as in life, right, that's going to drive the way we talk to our children and the way and the things that we're modeling to them in terms of language, right? I think so often as parents, and you're going to hear me say this a lot, so often as parents, we get kind of trapped in the labeling. Especially when our kiddos are little, we like to label a lot of nouns for them, right? Those people, places, and things. The light and car, water, juice, whatever it is, and we label a lot of things. So what happens is that our children develop a repertoire of a lot of nouns, a lot of things, which is good. We want them to know a lot of labels, but a lot of times as parents, we forget to model, or we don't model some of those other pieces of language that are also very important, okay? So we're going to talk about some of the communication functions or the purposes for why our kiddos are communicating and how we as parents can structure that language stimulation to help foster the development of all of those different functions and purposes, not just labeling. Okay, so let's get started. The first one, obviously, is requesting, right? Babies start this from the get-go and itty-bitties. They're hungry, they're crying, they're needing to have their diaper changed, and they're crying because of that. So be listening and be in tune to even those reasons, and model back language, even to your babies, right? When your baby starts crying, we talked about this a couple videos ago when we talked about expansions. If you're hearing them and you know they're probably hungry, clock time says it's probably time to eat, you can start even as an infant modeling the language of requesting food, discussing, let's go sit on the couch, we need your blanket, all of those things, modeling that language, immersing them in the language of requesting from the get-go, okay? The next one is refusing and protesting. Ironically, this is the one thing that I don't know that we've ever had to teach a child. Maybe I'm wrong, but to protest or to say no, right? It seems like that's the one word they learn the fastest, the easiest, right? If a child doesn't have any words, by golly, they're going to tell you that they don't want something one way or another. So refusing, protesting, and again, model the language. Oh, I know you don't like that. Are you mad? Are you angry? Tell me that, right? I'm mad. I know that. So, again, modeling that language, that's the parallel talk of giving them words beyond throwing out on the... We have a picture, hopefully we can put it in here. My daughter was protesting, right? Take a look at this. If that doesn't communicate just, I ain't having it, right? She was done. She was done, and she was communicating that clearly to us, and I'm sure you have examples of that as well. But protesting and refusing is another way that we want to give those children language to effectively communicate when they don't want something. The third type is getting attention, right? Sometimes they just communicate, hey, mom, or they're in their crib and you hear them, mom, and they're calling out for you. And the sole purpose is they just want your attention. They just want you to look at them or come to them. And so you're going to want to affirm that and expand that as much as you can. Finally, or the next one, we talked about labeling. And we have talked about that already. Those nouns, labeling objects, labeling ideas, labeling emotions, right? Not just the things in her environment, but we want to give them language to talk about ideas and thoughts and feelings and things that aren't concrete as well. And again, we're going to be talking more about that. The next communicative function is commenting. Sometimes we just talk of like, oh, hey, look, oh, a tree, or oh, the dog, right? And we're not necessarily labeling the dog. We were trying to tell you that the dog was chasing the cat, right? But maybe we don't have the language yet to give that whole sentence, but we're just commenting about our environment more so than labeling. So again, you're going to want to do both, right? As you're engaging in self-talk and parallel talk and expansions, mix it up, right? Maybe you want to model a sentence that's labeling. Oh, look at that. There, I see a cat, right? Or if you want to say the cat is running up the tree. Oh, he's getting away from the dog. Whatever it is, you're commenting as opposed to labeling. And again, if you have questions on that, put them in the comments. Maybe we can do a whole video just on that concept and the difference between the two. The next one is adding information. Okay, so if you're in a conversation with your kids, I know we've got one of our kiddos is great at this. We'll be in a conversation and all of a sudden he'll just add something in, and most of the time you don't even know that he's engaged in the conversation, but he's listening and he is active, he is present, he is there, and he'll just add in a little bit of something. Typically it's something that makes us all crack up because he's hilarious, but it's just adding that piece of information that wasn't necessarily labeling or commenting. He's just adding to what's already there, right? We do it too. If you're listening to a conversation and you're, oh yeah, I've been there before, right? Or whatever it is, you add something to the conversation that will enhance the conversation, but you don't necessarily have any other intent, right? So think about that again as someone's having a conversation, and how can you model for your child adding of information, and encourage them to add information too. Give them an opportunity. Model questions, kind of a bump, set, spike, right? Set them up. Scaffolding, you think of scaffolding on the side of the building. How can you scaffold their language? How can you add questions in there that will give them an opportunity to add information to the conversation that's happening around them? The next one is participating in social routines. This is a fun one, especially for little ones, right? All of these social routines we think of, like patty cake, peekaboo, the Horsey ride on your lap, whatever it might be, where you're doing the same routine over and over and over again. A lot of these social routines have breaks or gaps where they can fill in the sentence, right? Patty cake, bakers, and you wait, man, and they say man, and yay, it's a big deal, and you throw a party, right? So building these social routines and giving them breaks to fill in the words and engage with you and engage in a fun social activity You're making great eye contact. It's reciprocal, right? You take a turn, they have a turn. So there's what we call reciprocity built into these social routines. I'll put a link in the comments below of a good resource for social routines, because there are a ton of them out there, and they are great ideas for language stimulation. So the last communication purpose that we're going to talk about today is just sharing experiences, right? We do this all the time where we talk about something that happened. Maybe it was years ago, maybe it was earlier today, maybe it was something that happened at school, where we're just telling a story. We're just sharing something that we've experienced that we want to communicate it to somebody else and bring them into that, right? This happens a lot with our kiddos. Sometimes they'll come in the room and they'll say, ball, right? And as parents, it's our job, and remember, you're the expert on your kiddos, so you get the job or the privilege of figuring out, deciphering that code. Okay, is he looking for his ball? Did he lose his ball? Or did something happen to the ball, right? So it could be he's not labeling a ball. He's not coming to you with the ball saying ball, right? Or he's not commenting on a ball that he sees. He's trying to say ball because he's trying to bring you into an experience that's already happened. Okay, so guys, I know I've given you a lot of functions, a lot of communicative intents or purposes to think about. But again, going back to that idea of starting with why, I think it's important that we think about the reasons our kiddos are communicating so that we can think about more intelligently and more effectively think about how we can match those intents and those communication purposes with the way that we're going to stimulate their language. Okay, so guys, if you have examples of some of these, I would love to read them. I'd love for you to put them in the comment section down below. Again, I want this to be a place where we can engage as like-minded parents, as like-minded caregivers, where we can engage with one another and talk about, oh, this one time my kiddo said this and it was hysterical, and I'd love to read some of those as well. So comment down in the sections below, engage with this community. If you know of somebody who's not here yet, who doesn't know about us yet, share this video with them. Then you can also subscribe so that you'll know when we're putting out new video content. We put out content weekly, so you're not going to want to miss all the things that we have in store. Guys, thanks for joining us here at Lingaroo, where language comes to life.